Walking to the gym, and I've walked 100 feet and seen three with man buns already. I thought those were gone. Nobody told me they came back. No man bun. Do any of you remember Gidget the Midget? Just thought about her. Wonder if she's still alive. Probably. I should check it out online, see if I can find her. Back when porn was weird. Long gone are those days.
So I did a little research, and lo and behold, Gidget the Midget is still with us. Thank God. I'm so glad she is. She is in retirement, but you never know. She could come back. That'd be kind of awesome. Don't you think? I don't know. I miss back in the days when porn was weird and strange, not just, fucking. Well, there was still fucking going on, but it was just weird and strange fucking. Oddly, I saw a lot of porn with midgets in it. I don't know why. Weird. Oh, and apparently it's no longer midget, it's dwarf. So, there you go. Proper thing is to refer to them as dwarves or little people. Actually, I think they prefer dwarf over little people. Okay. Anyway, Gidget's with us. Yay! Okay. Oh, ow, something cracked. Anyway, so I'm thinking about Gidget still. I loved her. Does anyone remember there was this movie that came out, must have been maybe the 80s, maybe the 70s, but I'm pretty sure it was the 80s. It consisted of this orgy going on in someone's house, and just everyone's going at it. And there's this male dwarf standing on top of like some speakers from the home stereo system, dancing. And he's like spraying cum all over the place without even touching himself, which is impressive already. And it was, I think there were like people wandering around with like red gels over flashlights, and every now and then they'd turn the lights off and you'd just see like these strobes of red going all over the place and you couldn't see everything. It was trying to be sort of like that 60s, 70s kind of pop art type, kind of surrealistic kind of visual. Does anybody remember him? Do they know what his name is? Because I am fascinated by him. He was so strange. He had a huge, huge dick. It was massive. Even for a person of normal height, it was big. And on top of that, he could just come without, just without touching himself, just at will, spraying cum all over the place. I kind of think he was sort of like the center of attention in the entire movie. Like the entire movie was wrapped around showing him perform. So all of the normal-sized people that are having the orgy going on all around him aren't really the purpose of the video. The purpose of the video is all about him and his massive penis. It was big. Seriously, guys, it was.
You know what I really hate is when I'm drinking something like a smoothie with a straw and something thick gets lodged in the straw and I can't actually use the straw because nothing will come through the straw, and I'm basically ruining the straw because I have to blow out. It's so fucking irritating. If you're gonna grind something up for a smoothie, make sure it's like fucking puree, not chunks. Anyway, it's the day after Pride. I'm exhausted, so I didn't get any sleep. And I went to the gym, so I'm exhausted. Happy Monday.
Well, apparently I'm in a mood. Yeah, it's recording, sorry. Apparently I'm in a mood because I'm going to ask another question about porn. Have any of you ever seen a movie called Granny Fuckers, Century Sex? It had the main character was a woman named Rose Agree, and she was probably in her mid 80s. And she was getting fucked by this 40-year-old kind of doughy man, and he could barely stay hard because it was just so. It was upsetting. Like, she did not agree with me at all. She was. Her dentures kept slipping. She was wearing, like, orthopedic shoes with, like, nylons just up to the knees, and she tried to give a blowjob, but it was sad. Like, she's never put a penis in her mouth before. And he tried. He tried. He had to turn her around so he couldn't see her face, and it still didn't work for him. I just. I remember watching that movie purposefully because I wanted to watch it and just kind of wept because it was so awful. But yeah, if any of you have ever seen that, let me know because I'd like to share stories about it. Anyway, yeah, Century Sex, good times. So when I lived in New Orleans, I worked in a sex shop for a while called Second Skin. I've maybe talked about it before, I don't know. Anyway, my hands are dry. That's all, they're just dry. Nothing else, they're just dry. Anyway, I remember one afternoon while I was working there, we ended up getting a box of product that we had to put out on the floor and price and all that. But in the box came a bunch of videos, like VHS video, and it was all porn. So we were looking at it, and they literally shipped us porn that was titled things like $2 crack whore, and the cover of the video cassette cover box thing was this strung out black woman with circles under her eyes, just completely gone. Like, the body was there, but the rest of it wasn't. And she was basically being raped so she'd get a rock and crack. And apparently people watched this. And apparently they made a lot of them because we got like 4 or 5 of the same thing. Well, the same concept, but with like, it was like Crack Whore Volume 1, Crack Whore Volume 2. I mean, I don't know about you, but I personally don't want to watch crack whore getting raped. No, not really, not at all. Is this what straight people watch for porn, for entertainment? It's really disgusting and sad. Like, really, they need to find some better porn. Apparently, I'm going to talk about porn a lot because apparently that's on my mind because I'm in fucking quarantine and there's nothing else to do. And I'm male. Like, literally, that's all I'm doing is jacking off because there's nothing else to do. Anyway, one of the things that always bugged me about porn that was supposed to be period piece, like Cowboys and Indians, or ancient Greece, or whatever, but, you know, something from way back yonder, way back when. It always just kind of annoys me that you'll be watching it and they've got like amazing tan lines and they're using condoms. And I'm like, what? I'm pretty sure they didn't have latex, like, Trojan condoms back in the 1800s. Or, like, 200 BC. I mean, seriously. It kind of ruins the fantasy about it, I guess. I don't know. But, you know, a lot of these things were coming out in the 80s, and I remember when they were even talking about using 2 condoms at a time, just to be safe. So boring. Anyway, yeah. Yeah, that Cowboys and Indians one was really kind of sad. Hmm. Yeah, he had a feather in his head, just like a little thing with stuff coming down. It was so stereotypical and inappropriate. I guarantee you could not make that movie today at all. Anyway, on to something else. One of my secretly delicious and amazing and fun things to do while watching porn is to watch and pay attention to how bad the acting is. I mean, I remember seeing one where the woman who was talking was literally reading her lines from a piece of paper, and you could see her fold it up and put it in her back pocket when she was done. It was bad. I'm like, girl, you had 2 sentences and you couldn't remember them. You got big tits, but you couldn't remember 2 sentences. You could at least try to show some kind of emotion. Instead, it was sort of like, oh, I'm sorry, honey, I need to go to the store to buy some cottage cheese. The plumber will be here soon, so please don't fuck him. Or something. I mean, really, honestly, wooden. Totally wooden. One of the things that I find really obnoxious about the sex industry these days is that everyone has a camera, and lights aren't that expensive, and you can easily rent a hotel room. So therefore, you have all these people who are young and naive and never done this before, all of a sudden churning out porn, and they're calling themselves porn stars. And that's not really true. You're not a porn star. No matter how special your parents thought you were, you're not a porn star. You're a porn model. I'll go with that. But you're not a star. Porn stars are people like Jeff Stryker, John Holmes, Jenna Jameson, Ron Jeremy. Because they've done a shit ton of video work, and they all had charisma, and they all have something unique about them. Y'all are just a bunch of 25-year-old twinks with no hair on your body, and you just happen to have a friend who's willing to hold a camera and move around, and you have enough money to afford some lights. Just stop. You're a porn model, not a porn star. Big difference. You want to see a porn star? Go watch one of their movies. See what they did. Learn from them. Seriously, just learn from them.
So I guess the most important question today is, do I want to do a foxtail? Or do I want to do a raccoon tail? This is for bartending tonight. Any suggestions would be great. And no, not both at the same time. I can't. I'm not that talented. Yeah, good times.
When I lived in New Orleans, I was pretty angry, bitter, jaded, hurt due to the whole situation with this boy that I was involved with in Florida. Anyway, I don't want to get into that. I think I've gotten into that already about 1,000 times. Anyway, I created this broadsheet called Bitter Fruit. I made 4 issues of it. They're fun, funny, amusing. Like, here's one of them. All sorts of bullshit, just a whole bunch of like bitter, sour things to talk about. And I learned early on when I first created it, the very first issue, that it's really not a good idea to rate cocaine dealers. they don't tend to appreciate that. But I thought I was being funny. I was rating them based on like, would you want to hang out with them? Do they let you sample before you buy? Do they always give you a little extra because you're a regular customer? Are they somebody you're willing to go to while yours has been picked up by the popo and is in jail for a couple days? Is their stuff good quality? I mean, I think these are important questions, Will they come to you? Will they deliver it to your house, or do you have to go find them? What kind of people hang around them? Are they sketchy people, or are they just kind of like your normal, average, day-to-day Coke user? And like, do they sell anything else other than Coke, or is it just Coke? I think these things are important to know, and I think it's fair to rate them to determine whether or not they're a good person to go to acquire your drugs, right? I think so. But apparently, some of them didn't. And I kind of got a little bit of some very negative feedback from some of them. Things like death threats. Granted, nothing ever happened because it was New Orleans, and it's more talk than it is action, especially in the French Quarter. Most likely they were thinking to themselves, I'm going to kill him. I'll get around to it tomorrow. I'm busy tomorrow. I'll get around to it next week or something like that. And then they just forget about it. Or the police have picked them up and they're in county jail for a couple days. But yeah, don't rate cocaine dealers unless you want death threats. Probably a good idea. Just, something to think about, something to chew on. I don't know if any of you have ever been to New Orleans, or at least the French Quarter. There was this great bar that we used to go to back in like 1997, 98. I'm sure it's still there, and I'm sure it's still just as seedy as it was. It's called the Corner Pocket. And I believe it was every Tuesday they had New Meat Tuesday. And what that basically was that all of the boys who had just gotten out of juvie, who needed some money for their baby mama, or their girlfriends, or their drug habits, would go and go on the bar at Corner Pocket. Corner Pocket was a very smallish size bar, very modern. There's a pool table was like the excitement, and they had a jukebox. And other than that, it was just like a watering hole for people to go chill. But on New Meat Tuesday, they always had all these boys coming in that were brand new. All of them were like 18, 19, 20, barely legal. And the MC was a drag queen. And she would play music for them by choosing a track off the jukebox that she had to pay for with her own quarters. God, I love that place. It was so much fun. It was always amusing because those boys would find the old men who would be hanging out at the bar, and those men would be like waving them down the 20s and basically trying to get them to come home with them, and those boys would work it for all they got. Their towels covering the junk that they had to use were about this big. So, like, if they bent over, everything was just there. Those poor kids. They're just too much. There was one in particular who had his girlfriend's name tattooed across his stomach like this, and in like a crescent. It said Ginger. And after like 3 or 4 months of him dancing the circuits and getting money from here and there, it was no longer Ginger. It was just like a crescent moon. So he ended up having to remove her name for who knows why. But yeah, he was a special case. We always weren't sure about him. He was nice, but a little off. He might have been gay. I don't know. Most of the boys weren't. That was predominantly because if they were, if you're gay and a go-go, and you're working in a gay bar, one of the biggest problems that your owner has to worry about is you being picked up by a sugar daddy and no longer working for them, because you don't need to, because you're getting taken care of now as a kept boy. So they would always hire straight men to do the go-going in the gay bars, which I always found kind of weird, because I don't want to give my money to straight people. I would prefer to keep it in the family, you know? So I always just kind of looked at dick dancers as kind of like shady. Yeah, so anyway, the boy with the ginger tattoo had to end up getting it covered up for whatever reason, and the corner pocket was just a delight. If they're still doing it, I highly recommend you go. I don't know if it's on Tuesdays still. It might be Fridays. I can't remember. But I highly recommend you go and just check out their new meat night, because it's such a fucking riot. It's really just utterly crazy, but a lot of fun. One of the things that I loved the most about living in the French Quarter was going to the Bourbon Pub on the weekends, or pretty much any night, but the weekends usually were the best. And we would go upstairs to the dance floor, and we would go hang out on the balcony. And right at Bourbon and St. Anne is what we would affectionately refer to as the Lavender Line, which is basically like if you're walking up Bourbon from Canal, the minute you hit St. Anne, if you are straight, it's like there's just this wall in front of you. There's nothing to see beyond that wall. So you walk up to the intersection, you stop, then you turn around and walk away. Very rarely did you cross it. So that was the Lavender Line. There was, occasionally you would see some woman who would be with her boyfriend or husband, most likely boyfriend, who would like drag him kicking and screaming past that Lavender Line because she wanted to go take pictures of naked guys dancing, because they had just spent a whole bunch of time looking at a bunch of strippers. Those men were terrified. Like, they would walk down the middle of the street like this, concerned that gay would touch them. Gay from everything around them would just kind of like come and touch them, and then they'd suddenly become gay. It was always amusing. We would get a good laugh out of that. Those poor guys. It was seriously. Oh, what's even worse is like when that happened, if one of the dick dancers at like Oz or the pub saw a woman outside with a camera trying to take pictures of them, because there's no way their boyfriend or husband is going to let them actually go into the bar, because that's beyond the pale. Way too much gay. He is going to get some gay on him at that point, and then he's going to have to fuck her really hard that night just to prove he's still a guy. If the dancers saw her, they would go out onto the street, and they would dance with her, and they would be grinding up against her. And she would just be getting all flashing, and he is just looking like just pure, utter horror. Like, gay is way too close to him now, and it's flirting with his girlfriend or wife or whatever. And they always wore, the guys had to keep a certain, there was a minimum amount of clothing they could wear and dance and get away with it. And I think it was like a 6-inch by 6-inch square. So, talking like this. As long as they had that, they were good. So these guys, these hot go-go boys, would come out in the street covering their junk with that one little towel and be like all grinding up against the woman. She's like freaking out, loving it. He's freaking out, losing his mind. And the best part is, he thinks these guys are gay. So he's freaking out because some gay man is flirting with his wife or girlfriend. That's a straight man. And eventually the guys weren't allowed to do that anymore, so they could just kind of like thrust and gyrate from the bar, but they couldn't actually go out onto the street because the bar was losing money because those people could come in and drink and watch the dancer instead of the dancer going out to them, which made sense, but the amusement factor for all of us that lived there kind of died. It was unfortunate, but good times. Good times. I have a fetish for cleft palates. I admit it. I don't know why. They just turn me on. So, Joaquin Phoenix, I'd melt if he came close to me. Anyway, the weird thing is that I could spot them from quite a distance. So, if I was at the Bourbon Pub in New Orleans and we were on the balcony, I could see a guy with a cleft palate across the street, diagonally across the street, which is kind of a far distance. And my friends were kind of disturbed that I could catch that easily. I don't know. I thought it was a good talent. But I also have, as I've mentioned before, a bit of a fetish for gingers. So if you put those two together, my head will just explode because I won't know what to do with myself. It'll just be like, when I was at IML in 2008, one of the evenings that we were there, close to the end, I think it was on a Sunday or a Monday, we ended up going to Boys Town to go to the Sanger the show tune Sunday on Monday. And beforehand, before we went there, a couple friends of mine and we ended up going to this little diner on a corner. I cannot remember the name. Penny's, maybe? I don't remember the name of it. But we sat in the back because we were tired of being around all those homos. And sat in the back, and there was a table right next to us, and one of the guys that was seated at that table, more like a I can't think of the word, but one of the guys that was seated there was a redhead, and he had a hair lip or cleft palate. And I had made a comment to Chris, my friend Chris, that was with me during that dinner, about how I have a thing for cleft palates. And he loudly states in the restaurant, "So we just need to find you a ginger with a hair lip." I am horrified, like trying to crawl under the table as fast as possible. Meanwhile, the boys that are right behind us, that are sitting in a booth right behind ours, get up to leave, and this boy comes over to me, who's a ginger, with a cleft palate, and does this, pointing to it, and hands me his phone number. I died. He left. I was polite and said thank you, woof, or you're hot, or oh my god, just take me now, or I said something, polite. And I think maybe I want your children. I don't remember. When they left, my friend Chris was horrified as well, because he had just literally said that out loud and just saw who was right behind him when he said that. Sadly, since I didn't live in Chicago, the phone number ended up going into the round folder and just in the trash. I don't know why I bothered to throw it away. He was fucking hot. Oh well. But yeah, gingers with cleft palates really just make me weak at the knees. So, if you know any, bring them my way. I will take care of them. I will cook for them. I will. And I'm a good cook. It's what I did before I do hair. So, I know what I'm doing. In a lot of things, with a lot of skills. Yeah. So for the most part, I can deal with drunk people. Drunk people, no problem. I can deal with them all day long. I might judge them just a little bit, depending on how fucked up they are, but for the most part, everybody deserves to have some fun, to each their own. Like, they might judge me a little bit if they saw exactly what I do for sex, how much of it. So I really shouldn't be judging them on that, on their drinking. I will say, though, the only thing that drives me crazy, that really bugs me, is when I am encountering women who have been drinking red wine all day. And I saw a lot of this in New Orleans. Their teeth are stained red, their lips are stained red, everything in their face is stained red because they're so drunk. And it's a sugar drunk, so they're even more fucked up. And they get all clingy and they want to like keep up with the boys, but all of the men are like such raging alcoholics and already can deal with the amount of alcohol and cocaine they're using that they have no problem. Meanwhile, the girls usually end up puking in a gutter somewhere, passed out. It's really sad. I really wish they didn't try to impress the boys and kind of like be part of them, because nobody's asking them to. No one wants you to go through that, so it's perfectly reasonable to be able to say, I think I'm done. You can do that. You're allowed to do that. You do not have to feel like you have to keep up with the men, because you're not going to win unless you're a lesbian, and then you might win, especially if it's Jameson. That's a whole different story. Bachelorette parties and girls' night out are probably two of the most horrible concepts. They take people who are perfectly lovely individuals and turn them into massive assholes. It is amazing how the minute you get a group of women together who are out on the town without their husbands or boyfriends, and they're all drinking, and it's somebody's birthday or somebody's getting married, or they're all like out of the city for the weekend or whatever, and they just get so obnoxious. There is just something about it where you take very nice people, put them in that situation, and they just become absolute monsters. When I was living in the French Quarter and working in the sex shop, they would come in. And I don't understand why, but they felt like they had to touch everything. They would walk into the shop And they never got too far back because far back was where all the leather gear was. It was like good leather gear. But all the front was where they had all the gimmicky, like wind up penises with feet and decks of cards with naked men on them or whatever. But the girls literally had to touch everything they walked by. It's like, do you need to touch it to make sure that it's a real object? Because if you don't touch it, it's not real. I don't know. They would always giggle and point and laugh and behave like I'm in a zoo. I'm a animal in a cage that they can just kind of poke and prod and laugh at. And it wasn't just me. It was like anybody that was working. Yeah. It's so sad. Luckily, in situations like now, where I bartend at the Eagle, the front door guy flat out tells them, no, you're not allowed in. You're not welcome in. You have to go somewhere else. Because we're just not going to deal with it. And they expect all sorts of crazy treatment, free drinks. They expect us to give them the world. And we're a bunch of gay men. We do not care about the fact that it's your birthday or that you're getting married or that it's your girls' night out or whatever. We don't care. We're not going to give you free shots. We're not going to make you fancy woo-woo drinks because you're around a whole bunch of gay men, so you can be crazy even more so. We don't appreciate you like grabbing us on the booty or on our tits because we're not wearing a shirt. Yeah. I really would like to actually videotape a bunch of women in a bachelorette party and then show it to them individually afterwards so they can see exactly how obnoxious they were. And maybe that'll snap some like sanity in them so that if they do this again, they remember to not look like total douchebags. I don't know. It seems like it would be a good idea. You would hope at least.